You're listening to The Financial Outfitter, helping turn dreams into cherished memories. Sponsored by BPG Planning, purpose-based personal financial planning because it's about more than your money.
Welcome to another episode of the Financial Outfitter podcast. With us today is Bethany Beathard. Thanks for taking the time out and joining us today. You know, you and I had a chance to talk a little bit last week, and you know, after our conversation, I was like, "You have a lot to share." It was kind of like, well, where do we start? You know, you're a content creator, an ambassador, an author, a chef, a teacher, a mother of five, and a huntress. And it's like, okay, well, where do we start? And but one of the stories that you shared with me was how you actually did get started in a little bit of your family's hunting heritage. And I thought maybe that would be a great place to kind of introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, my name's Bethany Beathard, and I am a lot of things, but I grew up just kind of, a country girl. My parents had 55 acres, which they still live on. And so having firearms around really wasn't, anything new. My grandpa was a hunter, his dad, and we have like just these pictures in this lineage of hunting heritage. So it was just something that came natural that we did, predator management around our house and chickens and stuff. And I really say I grew up a marksman though, because I didn't really go hunting a lot as a kid, other than like the stuff around the house. But as an adult, I was like, this is something that I really want to get into. And at that time, my grandpa had already passed, but I had already had the skills from growing up, and now I've landed where I am now, kind of doing a little bit of everything.
So, a lot of times, whether people come into it like you did, a little bit of some family background, or they're introduced to it later in life, as they get older, lives seem to get busier, and folks will say, "Well, you know, I just really don't have the time."
Right.
But I mean, you're doing a lot of things, including raising five kids, and your schedule's got to be pretty darn demanding.
Yes.
So you've got to want it. I mean, you really have to have the drive to make that time in your schedule. So what do you think your number one driver is? What motivates you to make that kind of time?
There's a couple things I could probably nail down for that. One, I really love it. I love it. I love knowing where the majority of our food is coming from. I love that heritage connection. And I also bring my kids into it a lot of the time too, because I care about the next generation. Maybe not all my kids will be hunters, but I want them to have, the availability to do so. And I also, if they're not going to be a hunter, there's so many non-hunters that would still vote for the conservation, for gun rights and things like that. So I want my kids at least to have that in them, and just secure it for the next generation. So as a mom, I feel like everyone, you don't have to lose your identity in being a mom. I have five kids, I homeschool, I do all the things, and I still want to have passions that I want to do too. So, like you said, you'll make the time for it, just like the gym or anything else, if it's
Mm.
something that really care for. Now, me going to the field doesn't look necessarily like somebody else that doesn't have as many kids or doesn't homeschool, or you know they might have more opportunities. So I really try to maximize the time that I do get out in the woods, and not only share, but how can I get as many articles or content or things like that out of that experience, because it is few and far between.
You know, that's a good segue because I wanted to ask you specifically about kind of your most recent trip. Missouri was
Yes.
the Missouri, and it was mule deer, right?
No, whitetail.
You were hunting mule, you were hunting whitetail in Missouri.
Hmm.
Now, um, how did that? Because that wasn't a typical. "Well, I'm gonna pull a tag, or I'm just gonna go out there on my own." It was kind of a structured setup. Maybe give me a little bit of background on what that hunt was like, and I think it's worthwhile you mentioning the gun you were using while you were there.
Yes, yes. So I was invited on that hunt. That was a hunt put on by the NRA. One of their donors puts it on every year. I actually have permission to say Peter Churchborn puts this hunt together. And he invited me, and this was their first all ladies hunt, actually. And so I already knew the dates leading up to the times I could kind of plan around that. My sister lives in Missouri, so it's easy. She watched my kids while I was there. So that kind of all fell into place. Um, so yeah, we showed up and we did a range day first, checked our zero. I was shooting a Savage 7mm PRC, and it's actually like one of my favorite guns to shoot. And we did the range day, and then we had 2 days to hunt. Well, actually, it was a morning, an evening, and then we could hunt Sunday morning. We could either take our meat home if we harvested, or donate to the NRA Hunters for the Hungry meat donation center. They had a trailer there. And a big part of it is it was a 12,000-acre ranch, and he needs management. So we could do one
Hmm.
either sex and then up to 3 does, just because of the size. And nobody really, they do like 4 hunts a year, and 2 of those are turkey hunts, and that's it. And that's just a working cattle ranch the rest of the time. So it was a really, great opportunity. I went there with low expectations, just really just wanting to get out. I hadn't been out at all up until that point. And, since it was gonna be, scheduled, I knew it was gonna happen. And so yeah, but I still had low expectations. I don't know if you've seen the deer that I harvested, but
Yes.
yeah, no, there's no food plots, no cameras. They have over like 200 stands that they've made, that they're like made like ladder stands. And so they're like, all you have is just like the cowboys' word that work the ranch. Like, oh yeah, like there's good deer over here, there's good over here. And so I had no idea that 163-inch buck was going to come out, and I was going to
Right.
have the opportunity to harvest that. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was
it's
interesting.
an impressive deer.
Yeah, it really was. I was so surprised, and also just the time they had just dropped me off in the stand at like 2:50, and I had seen like 50 turkeys while I was out there. And, I do a lot of turkey hunting, so I was just joking on like my stories for Instagram, like, wrong tag, different season,
Hmm.
because there were so many of them out there. And I seen the doe come out at like 3:11, and I harvested at 3:28 in the afternoon. That buck came out, and it was
Wow.
great. I rattled him in. Like, he was at like 500 yards. And I've shot way past that with the 7mm, but I would never shoot that at and risk it at somebody else's property that I was invited to. And that's a pretty long shot.
Hmm.
So I was like, either this is going to work or he's going to spook. And I mean, as soon as I hit the rattles, he turns directly towards me, and then he just came in hot. And yeah, I got him at 112 yards.
That's one. It makes for an exciting experience
Yeah.
because that doesn't always work out that way,
No,
right?
no.
And that gun is certainly capable of reaching out there. But you had said to me that you kind of specifically picked out that rifle.
Yes, it's from Savage. Yes, I'm sponsored by them, and we had kind of went around on different calibers and stuff. And I had the opportunity early in the year to shoot that caliber a mile at the Cellmark Ranch, and I had shot it previously before that back in June on a range. And I said, I really like the cartridge. I like the caliber. I like the way that the gun's set up. There's not that much recoil. It's really easy to handle for as big a cartridge as it is.
Hmm.
And I mean, that gun is so smooth. It's the Savage 110 High Country. And even my husband, he's in the military. He's been in the military for 14 years now. And he was just like, that's one of the best guns I've ever shot. I took him to the range with me. And yeah, I really like it.
I do think that 7mm PRC will be my next cartridge. Interestingly enough, last night I was with some friends, and the one of the first guests we had on the show here was a young woman, Ashley Frederick, and last night she picked up her 7mm PRC because she shot that rifle that was owned by another friend of mine earlier this year in Africa. And after shooting it, she was just like,
It is so
this is what,
nice.
this is what I
Yeah.
want. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And it was like immediate impact. And I mean, he felt like right there. And also, the Hornady, I was using Hornady Precision, which
mm,
the Precision Hunter, and it's just a great round.
I use the same round out of my 6.5 PRC,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Precision Hunter.
Yeah.
So there's really kind of two areas we'd like to think we focus on with the show, and that is people that have stories that would inspire or encourage other people to get engaged in the sporting lifestyle or deepen their engagement in the sporting lifestyle.
Mhm.
And then a piece that I just refer to as passion to paychecks, where you take your interest in what it is, your passion, and it actually grows into an income or a career path. And you really check both of those boxes. You have been able to do that, and with this your recent trip, and how it all went down. Now, will you write about that? And how will that content or story get picked up?
Yeah. So usually before a trip happens, I will write to some of the editors that I write for and say, "Hey, I'm going on this trip. What kind of coverage can I do for it?" Or I know that I already have something that will be like, I'm testing um the best headlamps or something like that.
Mm,
That's an opportunity that I'm going to be able to get field testing on those items. So if I'm not going into it with an assignment already made, I'm going to maybe pitch it out if I know it's going to, like as for this one, I really didn't pitch much because I didn't know if there was going to be a harvest at all. Like I said, I didn't really have a
mhm,
huge thing. So now that there is a harvest, I've reached out. I actually have two publications that are I'm narrowed down to that have both said, yes, we'll take the story. So now it's just me writing up an official query to the one that I choose. Now I have a hunt trip coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm going to look at it from a couple different angles. As a writer, sometimes it's just the story, like like the deer. I'm going to talk about just the story of being out there and like all that stuff. Sometimes I do a lot of beginner content. So, what are 5 tips for waterfowl hunting or something
mm.
like that? Whatever the trip is, I'm going to try to squeeze out at least to pay for the trip and, um, a little bit of profit if I can. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's kind of what I do. It just depends, and working with different publications, and I really have been blessed because I work for a lot of different publications, and it gives you a variety of ways that you can pitch a trip.
So, and that's actually great information.
Mhm.
But if you don't have those relationships, if you are just getting started, well, I guess the question is, how did you actually get started?
Yeah. So I was just a mom sharing content on Instagram, and I kind of
Mm,
got picked up by a pro staff company that was just for women, and they had a blog, and one of our requirements, I guess, was to do like one blog post every quarter. And so I started writing a couple blog posts, and finally I was just like, you know what? I kind of really feel like I want to write about, you know, how to get into hunting for people that don't know, because I got a lot of questions. So I wrote this like article, and the lady that was the editor said, I used to be an editor for this one magazine, and this is just really too good to go on our blog. Like, this is really good. And I know somebody that you should be in touch with. And so she introduced me to an editor, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And I just got a lot of connections. But if you haven't written for somebody, one, there's probably going to be a lot of free writing in the beginning. I did
mhm,
still do a lot of free writing. There's a lot of websites that will take reader requests type things. But what happened was I uh started, going on to places that I wanted to write for. And they all have like editor emails. And so then you start doing that,
mhm,
or LinkedIn, and um yeah, so you just a lot of networking too. It's a lot of
mhm.
groundwork to just get the connections. And
Right.
sometimes you'll write for a publication, and then you just kind of move on too. So it just depends, but
Yeah.
uh yeah, that's just what I started doing was emailing editors and going to different writer association type things.
Aside from like your next trip, what do you think the next step is or the next project is for you from a writing standpoint?
Um, so I do have monthly contributions now that I do regularly write different things. Uh, Really, I just try to go to the next quarter. And so I'm going to,
Mm.
again, reach out to all the editors. Um, I'm going to SHOT Show next month. So I'm trying
Hmm.
to secure coverage for that. Reaching out to editors, hey, like aside from other things that I normally write for, I'm going to be at the event. Like, I'll probably do a lot of product stuff, definitely tailored towards women. Maybe what's the best new concealed carry bags, what's the best new women firearm lines, or whatever. Um, a lot of product stuff. And yeah, what's the next season? Turkey season's coming up, waterfowl season's still lingering. I haven't done a lot of waterfowl content. And so I just see where the content gap is and where I can, hopefully secure some more deals. And as a freelancer, it's an ebb and flow. There's good months and there's like dry months. And so
Yeah.
you are your own activist as far as making sure that your calendar gets booked and invoices to get paid and things like that.
So you kind of follow the season, whatever that might be. And that probably takes you what, regionally, nationally. Is there kind of a dream hunt or an ideal adventure that you'd like to have?
Oh man, uh, probably moose, like a little bit more north. I've kind of stayed Oklahoma and down as far as,
Hmm.
hunting. Uh, Maybe, I've done Oklahoma elk and I love elk hunting, but Oklahoma elk is a lot different than like Colorado or Wyoming elk.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
just really love North American game. Um, but if I had like an all-time hunt, probably stag. I would definitely
Hmm.
stag. I would go after that, New Zealand or somewhere.
We actually might have touched on that when
We did,
we were
yeah.
talking. Yeah. And our last guest, we were just actually talking about um, Patagonia, you know,
Yeah.
being in Argentina, and both of those places are worthy destinations, that's for sure, New
Yeah.
Zealand and Argentina,
Hmm.
and plenty of opportunities to have amazing experiences.
Hmm. Yeah.
When we were chit chatting a little bit before, you had shared some pretty interesting research that you had discovered. And I mean, this might seem like it's a bit off topic, but if my memory serves me, I think it was an archaeological find
Hmm.
or findings.
Yeah.
Now, one, how did you discover that information and what did you find?
So I was researching women hunting. The statistic right now is that they're the fastest growing demographic, but I kind of come from a
Hmm.
stance of I'm a mom. There was a lot of moms without dads in the homes during like the Civil War time, and their babies were still getting fed. So then I was like, I want to kind of trace this. Like, how long have women really been hunting? Like, where can we find this information? And I stumbled upon an article by National Geographic, and this was last year, and they had just published that they were doing some archaeological digs in the Americas, and there was a couple different sites, and they had found women that were buried with big game hunting tools. And it wasn't just men. And so they had estimated now that in prehistoric times that they believe like 30 to 40% of big game hunters were women. And so it's kind of rewriting the narrative. Now, I think that there's been time in American history that we've seen, less women, especially during like the city industrial time. Obviously the women weren't hunting, so then the men would leisurely go and hunt. But the people that lived in
Hmm.
rural areas, and even we go back to like the Native American tribes and different structures of like the processing of the game and stuff. I think women were a lot more involved than what we see now. Um, and now we're seeing a lot more. And I think, social media, I feel, has been a big catalyst of just like seeing the most involvement in women hunting, because now it's publicized to where it would be unheard of to really see a women's hunting section in the Sears catalog in the 80s, or so it's just it's a lot
Right.
different, you know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just, the evolution of women's hunting clothing
Yes.
is fairly new.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, before it was like if you were going to go, you had to buy men's stuff,
Yes.
and now world class producers are making things specifically for women.
Hmm. Yes. And it's
So what clothing do you have a bias,
yeah.
or
Well,
actually do you rep a
I
company?
do. I do. I am on a pro staff for DSG. It's DSG outerwear,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, they're 100% for women by women.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I love the company. I've done several interviews with the owner. I know her personally, and what I love about the company is most companies that have women, I guess, they have a women line, it's 10% of what they do because 90% of their money is really coming
Right.
for their mail line. But whenever it's, she just took a
Right.
risk and made this 100% women apparel outerwear line because she has, several lines, this snowmobile line, uh, fishing, ice fishing, open water, and hunting. And so just this whole outdoor woman line, and just the size range too, because they use real models and they're the only company that makes double extra small to 4XL. And so it's nice to have stuff that's going to actually fit the everyday woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I just noticed that with a couple of folks with their Black Friday sales.
Yeah.
I looked, and they're kind of profiling or maybe advertising their women's line, but that's a recent thing, and I think that if and I think back about the advertising that comes across my phone or my desk or whatever, and I think it's DSG has been probably one of the first ones that I was like, "What is that?"
Hmm.
Uh, So it's not like they just came on the scene a year ago.
Mm-mm. No, the
She's been
hunting
around
line's
with
been
the
out
with the
since like,
company for a while.
yeah, 2017, I think the hunting line released.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, as a mom with 5 kids, um, taking them afield with you,
Yeah.
um, do you have to flip a coin, draw a straw? I mean, obviously, not everyone's going to have the same level of interest, and their age is a big influence. But how do you handle that? How do you manage that?
Um, so as far as like scouting goes, we take everyone and we try to do definitely, we hunt a military base. So there's no cameras, there's no feeders, there's none of that. So it's a lot of boots to the ground in the off
Mm.
season. And so we take all of them during those times as it goes into the seasons. And it also is age appropriate, also ability appropriate. What are they interested in? I don't want my kids to feel like they have to do it. My oldest has
Mhm.
autism, and he's more of the one that wants to join for, waterfowl, pull in the motion decoy, like that kind of thing. He wants to be involved in that way. And so my 11-year-old is a mountain man. He wants to go all the time. I'm gonna have to release him into the wild one day. A matter of fact, I forgot that deer. He was like, "So when are we going deer hunting?" I need, like he, I need to get a deer. So him and probably my 9-year-old daughter. She sat with me in the rain. She suffered just as much through it. They both duck hunted and harvested ducks. Um, my other two are a little young still, 6 or 7 and 4, and so they'll
Right.
have questions about it. They're more on the back end, after the deer's already there. Let's make jerky together. I want to touch it. Where's its skin? Can I pet its head before the taxidermist type thing? Like I want to look at this, just more sensory, not as I don't want to go out there and sit for hours and suffer in the cold yet. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
just
So
meet in more
sometimes
their
I don't
living
blame
cars.
them. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yes.
yeah. So you have to convince yourself at times that you're actually enjoying your
Hmm.
time freezing or being soaking wet, but for some odd reason you keep coming back, right?
Yes, it's addiction, I think.
Now, yeah, it is a little bit. It's more than a habit.
Yeah,
It's a
for sure.
lifestyle for
Yes.
sure. You had said to me that what you like to actually show is the whole process.
Hmm.
So from preparing for a hunt, to the hunt, to the preparation of the game and serving of the game.
Yes.
What would be your favorite recipe? What do you like to make the most?
Oh man. Um, there's a lot of recipes. Wild boar carnitas is always like a really big hit. We did a lot of hog hunting when the kids were little, and so we had like a lot of hog meat. And so that's probably one. And then mm, elk. I mean, there are so many recipes with elk. Also, like this venison chili. I'm actually going to be canning that this year, I think, for so I can have it throughout the year. Just like do big batches of
Hmm.
canned chili. It's always a hit. It's easy. A lot of people that don't eat wild game meat that we're around will eat the chili. Um,
Hmm.
so I can serve that at other places or like have people over and they'll eat it. Um, or even elk enchiladas. That's always been a hit too.
We did a pheasant hunt the day before Thanksgiving, and I made chili with ground turkey, ground wild boar, or the wild boar and venison,
Hmm.
and it was a huge hit.
Yeah,
And then the next day on Thanksgiving, I actually got to make pheasant soup.
that's
So
awesome. I have not had pheasant.
yeah,
I've had opportunity to go pheasant hunting a couple times and it just never worked out. But yeah, people say that they love it.
you wouldn't be surprised by this, but it's dry,
Yeah.
right? So you got to take that into consideration. But we have a great time. It's been 5 or 6 years now that we've been doing that the day before Thanksgiving.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So would there be anything like specific that you'd like to kind of put at the end that we can kind of package it up and in terms of the episode, like a final parting thought, any encouraging words, anything else you'd like to add?
Um, you know, I really think that if you're a woman looking to get into the outdoor industry, uh, or even just looking to get into writing in general, like anybody, there's a lot of opportunity, even, we're a consumer. And so I think a lot of people think that, I'd love to get in writing. There's already a lot of writers. There's a lot of
Hmm.
consumption too. And so,
Right.
it's just go for it, friend some editors on LinkedIn, pitch to some places. Um, because I think the more perspective that we get out there, just you never know who you're going to come across and be like, I really like reading their stuff. That's really been helpful. Or just sharing on social media in general, um, like I said, I think that's been a catalyst to a lot of people getting into the outdoors or just being a part of it. I know a lot of people that don't hunt, but follow me for hunting content because they say they live through me. I have a lot of moms that will say that. And I love that because we still need that non-hunter vote. And that's
Absolutely.
important to me also just to show just a real person out there doing it, not just, I know people think that I'm
Yeah,
out
yeah,
here
and that's
doing a lot of things, but I'm just a mom too.
well, that's more than enough,
Yeah.
oftentimes, right? And it's a
Mhm.
full schedule.
Yeah.
So, I really appreciate that perspective. As we kind of wrap up here, close in on a last light. I noticed that you had open for work on your LinkedIn profile.
I always am. Yes,
Are you still open for
I
work?
am. I am.
Yes.
I am.
Okay. And what kind of work would you like to find?
I do various things, but mostly writing content, summaries, also just content creation. I have a couple places I, do contracts, brand deals as far as reels, static posting, sponsorships, and things like that for outdoor industry companies. But I really, it's a ebb and flow. So I'm always looking for stuff to pick up and continue going, monthly contributions.
Excellent. Well, um, so if people want to find you, what's the best way? Is it LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Bethany Beathard. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm on there as Our Abundant Home, and that's where I share kind of everything. But LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Thanks again for your time. I really appreciate you making it happen today. And for our listeners, please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the podcast. When you do, you're becoming a member of the pack, not the herd.
Our mission is to promote new connections in the sporting community by bringing awareness to opportunities and issues that impact our lifestyle, challenge members to think critically about their role in the modern world, and help others to turn dreams into cherished memories. This episode is sponsored by BPG Planning, purpose-based personal financial planning because it's about more than your money.